Hey, this is Frank Honus, and I want to welcome you to the Pure Life Podcast. For 12 years of my life, I lived with some really dark secrets, shame, and an addiction that was taking over my life. I was addicted to pornography and other kinds of sexual sins. There were so many times that I tried to break free of this addiction on my own, but I just couldn't do it. It wasn't until I became broken of my sin and sought the help of some other men who struggled just like me. Today, by God's grace and the help of others, I'm walking in freedom and recovery, and it's my desire to help men and women break free from the chains of sexual addiction. The mission of the Pure Life Podcast is to help individuals live with sexual integrity through Jesus Christ. Thanks for listening and enjoy the podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 68 of the Pure Life Podcast. My name is Frank Honus, and I hope that you're having a great weekend on this beautiful, beautiful fall weekend. It is gorgeous outside. I don't know where you are, but if in your neck of the woods, but the leaves in our area, in this community, my neighborhood, my development are just turning, and they are gorgeous. And so it is just a beautiful weekend, and I hope that you're having a great week. I hope that you are experiencing victory and walking in recovery. Hopefully you're walking in sexual recovery, and that you are doing the work and you are becoming the man and the woman that God wants you to be. That's part of what we're going to talk about a little bit today on this week's podcast. Thank you guys so much for being patient with me as I'm kind of getting back in the swing of things with a new baby and having a new baby and just a brand new season, getting used to baby life, if you will. And it's just been an incredible, incredible blessing, incredible journey. And so I just want to, this week, I want to share some thoughts with you on this podcast about 5 attitudes that every sex addict needs to have in recovery. I want to talk about those attitudes, those mindsets, those expectations that every person who is addicted sexual addiction needs to have as you're walking in recovery, as you're walking into victory. What are the mindsets? What are the attitudes? What should you be expecting in recovery? And so, I kind of wanted to start a little bit this week by just sharing that right now in my life, I'm just a few months into my 5th year of recovery from sex addiction. And really the ride from the last 4 years has just been incredible. It's been a really wild ride. It's been a crazy ride at certain points. It's been a very difficult one. But it's been one that's been totally worth it, totally valuable, that I've learned all sorts of lessons, all sorts of things. I've learned more about the addiction that took hold of my life than I ever thought was possible. I mean, there were some really, really dark moments in my life, some really low moments where I thought that I would always be addicted, that there was never going to be change, that I would always be a person who was just hooked on porn and would not be able to stop, with these addictive behaviors, pornography and masturbation and fantasy. But I've learned more about the addiction that really took hold of my life than I ever thought was possible. I mean, it was just, it's been amazing, the wealth of knowledge that I've learned. I've experienced pain and struggle that I thought would simply go away when I stopped looking at porn. Which, I thought, which is a total lie, by the way, that if you are walking in recovery today and you're expecting that all of your pain and all of your trial and your struggle will just stop if you just stop looking at porn, that's not reality. But, I've experienced that kind of pain. I've experienced that kind of struggle and really, really, fought against that and wondered, well, what's going on here? Why am I not experiencing more relief? I've also grown, and I continue to grow in sexual integrity through healing in my mind, in my brain, and in my heart. And so when I talk about my mind, I'm actually talking about my brain. God has been faithful to me to help me to heal and to grow in my heart, to restore feelings and emotions, to restore sensitivity. But he's also helped me to, I believe, to restore, areas and cells even in the brain, areas that was so devoted to pornography and to objectification. Um, God has helped to restore my brain, to rewire my brain and my heart. I've also faced lots of questions about sex addiction. And I'm really thankful today that there have been people in my life, accountability partners and coaches and mentors and pastors and friends that have helped me deal with those questions. They've helped me to kind of answer those questions, and not every single question has an answer. And so maybe they've just listened to me and helped me to kind of, with the struggle of asking a question, they've helped me to kind of deal with it, and they've talked with it through me. And so in many ways, as I think about my life, as I think about my recovery, I've really had to kind of reboot, if you will, to use a little computer terminology. I kind of had to reboot my brain and my heart, my life, to learn really what sexual purity really looks like. I had to really start over and to begin anew and to begin afresh and go to a starting place, a healthy place. And that's not been easy. It's definitely not been easy. But in addition to really working on my own junk, I've also had the opportunity to work with other men too, who want to find freedom from sex addiction. Whether that's pornography or masturbation or fantasy or same-sex attraction or whatever that might be. Strip clubs. Whatever sexual addiction it might be. I've had the incredible opportunity to work with a lot of men to help them find freedom too. And the results, have been really interesting. I find it very interesting that from the men that I work with, probably about 50% of men, some of those men, maybe about 50%, are really prepared to do the work that it takes to get free. They're ready, they're amped up, it's not just excitement and feelings, but they are really willing to do the work. They're willing to put the boundaries in place, to be honest, to find the accountability they need, to go to, find a support group, to get on the phone when they struggle. They're just really willing to do the work. And there's a lot of work to do to find freedom and recovery, to find the healing that we need from sex addiction. So 50% of those men that I've gotten to work with, they're really prepared to do the work. But the other 50% I found, these men, they kind of want to take a broom and they want to sweep it under the rug, and they expect to take care of this addiction overnight, which I always find to be, really funny and humorous. Not that I'm laughing at the person themselves and what they're struggling with, but I always find that mindset of, I just want to deal with this and get this over with and just sweep it under the rug and it be taken care of, and that's it. I think that's a really, to be quite honest, I think it's a really naive kind of mindset to have about sex addiction. I think that's a really unrealistic mindset to have about sex addiction. And I think it's a very dangerous one. If we have that mindset that we can just simply sweep this under the rug, it's a dangerous, dangerous reality. And so my first challenge, I guess, in this podcast is to say to you that if you're struggling with pornography, if you're struggling with masturbation, with fantasy, wherever you're at, don't try to just sweep this under the rug and expect that you can just go through some drive-through and get rid of this in a matter of minutes or hours or days or months or sometimes even years. Sexual addiction, one of the greatest realities I had to face in my recovery from sex addiction is the fact that this would be a long-term process. And that's not to say that this is like a, begrudging kind of thing and it's like this big weight on your shoulder and, oh, it's so much hard work every single day. This is a long-term process because it's a process of rebuilding. And I realized that I needed to rebuild something inside of me that I had destroyed through my exposure to pornography. I had totally destroyed it. And through every single website, through every single person that I fantasized about or looked at or whatever that was, I had destroyed something inside of me and damaged something inside of me that needed to be rebuilt and is continually being rebuilt on a daily basis. Again, I'm a few months into my 5th year of recovery, and I'm still dealing with things. I'm still walking and healing I'm still grappling with issues and thoughts and mindsets, and there are challenges on certain days. It has become easier and has gotten more freeing. And I don't feel like I'm tempted every single day or I struggle every single day. I feel like I've found a great level of victory and purity. I don't look at porn anymore. I don't masturbate. And even though those behaviors are stopped, I've sensed I've really found intimacy with my feelings, with my emotions. I've become a real person again. I've got flesh again. You know what I mean? It's not this hardness that pornography and sexual addiction brings about. So in this podcast, I think there's some real attitudes, mindsets, expectations, whatever you want to call them, that every sex addict needs to have if he's really serious about pursuing purity. So that's what this podcast is going to kind of be focused on. I want to focus on five attitudes that every sex addict needs in recovery. And so number one, the first attitude that every sex addict, if you're addicted, if you find yourself struggling with pornography, all of the above, masturbation, fantasy, whatever it is, and you really do want to walk in recovery, these are five attitudes, five things you need to be aware of, you need to have in your life for you to walk into recovery, and you need to be prepared for. Number one, you need to be prepared to have the attitude that you're going to grow. Be prepared to grow. And here's the idea here is that you have the opportunity to become the man or the woman that God wants you to be. And so what an incredible opportunity that is. For 12 years, 13, 14 years of my life, depending on how far I go back, I forfeited that. And I played the role. I played church. I played the Christian. You know what I mean? I wasn't real, and I really wasn't the young man that God wanted me to be. I was a fake. I wasn't being real. And so you have this opportunity to grow in your recovery. And so look for those growth moments every single day, because there are growth moments every single day of your life. There will be. If you look for them, if you find them, they'll be there. So look for the growth moments. They might be hard to find at first, especially just coming out of recovery where your mind is going crazy, your heart is going crazy, and you've been addicted. But look for those moments of growth each and every day, right? So be prepared, number one, to grow. Number two, be prepared to question. Now, what do I mean by that? Be prepared to question. Some days you're going to feel stronger than others. There's going to be some days where you are you question whether this journey is really worth it. Whether finding freedom from sex addiction, from porn, is really worth it, or if the porn is really, if it's really, the porn is really worth going to. You just need to be aware of that you will question, you will have days of doubt, you will have days where you're gonna question whether this journey is really worth the journey. But believe me, it's worth it. It's worth it. And don't be afraid when you have those doubts, when you have those questions, to really ask the questions that you need to ask your accountability partner, to ask a mentor, to ask a coach, to ask a pastor, to ask a friend. If you have struggles and you have doubts, this is a part of our freedom that we find from sex addiction, is that we have got to get our story, we've got to get out of ourselves, we've got to begin talking to people, we've got to begin being open and transparent again. So you've got to be prepared to question. The third one, you've got to be prepared to fail. Now, this might sound like a kind of a weird attitude to have. You're telling me, really, Frank, you're telling me I need to be prepared to fail? I need to have an attitude of failure? No. We need to have a proper perspective that as we start to come out of sex addiction, as we start to walk into recovery, into freedom, into honesty, into healing, that there will be times where we screw up, quite honestly. Every sex addict fails. It's the truth. I failed so many times as I've tried to become free. I was a liar. I lied to my wife. I lied to people. I was not my true, genuine, authentic self. I could not be because I was so bound by porn. So just realize that there will be moments of failure, that you will make mistakes, that you might even have a relapse here and there. But the truth is that you should never, ever give up. Never give up. You are learning to put boundaries in place, hopefully. Hopefully you're learning to put boundaries in place, that you're learning to make new decisions, to make decisions that are right, that are good for you, that are healthy for you. And that's a process. It's a process to go from porn every single day of your life to no porn every single day of your life. Not just not looking at porn, but being honest, being open, developing a mindset of honesty and transparency. That takes time. So you should be prepared to fail, because there will be failures along the way. It's just the truth and the reality. It's not to be discouraging or anything like that. It's just to tell you that we will mess up and we will fail. We will make mistakes. But never give up. Never keep on walking. Get back up from that mistake. Get back up from that relapse and try again the next day. And realize that every single day God is on your side. Every single day that God is on your side, and realize that if you are a believer, especially, I love what Romans 8:1 says, that there is no condemnation. There is now no condemnation for those who are in Jesus Christ. That is the hardest thing for us to realize, especially as sex addicts. We deal with shame. We deal with a lot of shame. We deal with a lot of pain. And but there's no condemnation. God is not condemning you for your failures. God is not condemning you for your mistakes. He's your greatest cheerleader. He's your greatest fan. He loves you, and He's with you. So be prepared to fail, but also to get back up. The fourth one, number 4, is be prepared to learn. Try to cultivate an attitude to learn from every situation that you find yourself in, whether that's the victories or the failures. This is a hard thing to do for us as sex addicts, because we've been used to becoming bound. We've been used to porn. We've been used to that. I don't know if you were like me, where you'd mess up, you would look at porn, and then you feel really, for a few seconds, obviously you feel good. There's that release, that orgasm, and then you crash. There's this crash, and you feel guilt and shame, and you're just, why did I do that? What was I thinking? God, cleanse me, forgive me, I'm so sorry. But then soon really underlying, subliminally, we begin to develop this mindset that we're not able to be forgiven, I think. That really, we can pray the prayer, but we know that when that feeling strikes, when that trigger strikes, that we're going to go right back to it. And so, God, how can you forgive me? How can you cleanse me from something so vile and something so gross and, something so wrong? But let's really try to cultivate this attitude to learn from every situation that you find yourself in. If it's a victory, if it's a time where you walked away from porn, if it's a time where you learned something about your recovery, your sobriety, if you learned, what triggers this inside of me, or what, maybe there's a family situation growing up, or there was a trauma that you discovered. In the victories, but also in the failures, try to learn. Recently, I shared with a friend of mine, and I asked him, he was sharing with me how he had felt like he was going back down the path of failure, that he had compromised. He just felt really bad and discouraged. And I told him, I said, well, ask yourself this question. What can I learn from this situation? What can I learn as a result of what I did? Instead of, because the truth is you can't go back and change what happened, right? You can't go back and undo your decision, your choice. But you can stand back and say, how can I learn? Number one, what can I learn from this situation? Number two, how can I do it differently next time? How can I not go down this path next time? How can I make the right decision and the right choice? So number 4 is be prepared to learn. And then the last one is be prepared to start over. Be prepared to start over. You might feel like I did, that in your life you have wasted so much time. So many years of your life have been wasted with sex addiction, with porn, with masturbation, with lust. And as I think back in my life, the best years of my life have really only been the last 4. Because for 12, 13, 14 years of my life, I actually have to think about it and recalculate how far sex addiction goes back. Because those years were not years of growth. Those were not years of authenticity. Those were years where I was addicted, and I was not the man that God wanted me to be, and I was sick. And even though I feel like I've had to kind of start over in my life, I know that it's been worth the journey. It's been worth the battle. And I pray that you will come to that place that you find these mindsets, that you find these attitudes, you embrace these attitudes. Hit the rewind button, go back and listen to these, jot these down. Are you prepared to grow, to question, to fail, to learn, to start over, right? Are you prepared to take on these mindsets and to take on these attitudes, and to walk into recovery? Because recovery is not an easy thing. It's not something you can sweep under the rug. It's not something that's here and then, I'm just going to get over it. I'm going to be over this. And I hate that attitude. I hate that mindset that I've heard from men. And I know that there are many men who deal with that and think that this is not a big deal. And they don't think that pornography and sexual integrity is a big deal, but it is a big deal. It is probably, in my opinion, the greatest addiction that could ever take control of our lives. But God wants us to be free. And so that's my prayer for you today, that you will take on these 5 mindsets, these expectations, that these attitudes, actually, these 5 attitudes will be cultivated in your life. Ask yourself that question. Hit the rewind button, go back and check this out. And if you have any questions, you can always email me. And now you can also leave a voicemail for the Pure Life Podcast. If you go on to purelifepodcast.com, at the very top, click the button that says send voicemail. I'd love to hear your feedback about the podcast. I would love to know if you have topics or questions or things that you'd like for me to talk about. So better than an email, you can email me, obviously. I would love your emails. But please, also, would love to hear your voice. So go to the very top of the website, click on send voicemail, and record a 90-second message for me. So I hope that you can take that opportunity to connect with me. Thanks so much for listening, for watching the Pure Life Podcast this week. Can't wait to see you next week for a brand new episode. My name is Frank Honus, and I wish you a pure life. God bless. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the podcast this week. I want to encourage you to check out our website, purelifepodcast.com, for a lot of great blogs and resources and podcasts from previous episodes to help you along in your journey for sexual purity. Remember, you can listen to the podcast on our website, iTunes, and Stitcher Radio. And if you need to contact me for any reason, if you have questions or comments, email me at frank@purelifepodcast.com. That's frank@purelifepodcast.com. See you next week.